Kiev. It's Mr. Droin. And Will Tugama. Well, today is Folklore Thursday on Twitter. Probably one of my favorite days of the week. And because they're posting all these things about the winter season and Christmas and all the different wonderful little things about the different folklores from around the world, I found myself getting agitated, saying, wait. What's with all this mistletoe talk with the Druids? And there seems to be quite a number of people just regurgitating the same old thing. And it's been going on for a very long time. So what do we really know about the Druids, Drui, and mistletoe? Let's take a look at the source material. Kendrick, right? Kendrick's book is one of the only books that I know of that actually provides all of the classical accounts in Latin and Greek. In translation, as well as in the back of the book, the actual Latin and the actual Greek. Page 88. And page 89. Everything that we know about the Druids and mistletoe comes from Pliny the Elder and his natural history. Now, if we know anything about him, we would read his work and it would be clearly evident that he is obsessed with the esoteric. So much so that you begin to wonder what he's making up and what is actual fact. Anybody that studies folklore, anybody that studies history, can clearly see that he is mishmashing various cultures. You can see some Egyptian influence, you can see definite Norse influence in his works, that he's just putting things together. But let's get at it. This is what he says on the Druids and the mistletoe. Here we must mention that awe felt for this plant by the Gauls, the Druids, for so their magicians are called, held nothing more sacred than the mistletoe, and that tree that bears it, always supposing that to be the oak. But they choose groves formed of oaks for the sake of the tree alone, and they never perform any of their rites except in the presence of a branch of it, so that it seems probable that the priests themselves may derive their name from the Greek word for that tree. In fact, they think that everything that grows on it has been sent from heaven and is proof that the tree was chosen by God himself. The mistletoe, however, is found to be rarely upon the oak, and when found it is gathered with due religious ceremony, if possible on the 6th day of the moon, for it is by the moon that they measure their months and their years, and also their ages by 30 years. They chose this day because of the moon, though not yet in the middle of her course, has already considerable influence. They call the mistletoe by a name meaning in their language the all-healing. Having made preparation for sacrifice and a banquet beneath the tree, they bring hither 2 white bulls, whose horns are bound, and then for the first time, clad in a white robe, the priest ascends the tree and cuts the mistletoe with a golden sickle, and it is received by others in a white cloak. Then they kill the victims, praying that God will render this gift of his propitious to those whom he has granted it. They believe that the mistletoe, taken in drink, imparts... this is all screwed up here. it imparts something to barren animals, and that it's the antidote for all the poisons. Such are the religious feelings that are entertained toward trifling things by many peoples. There's two more sections that talk about other types of sacred plants and how they are gathered as well. Similar to savin, this plant is called salago. It is gathered without using iron and by passing the right hand through the left sleeve of the tunic. Through the tunic, though in the act of committing a theft. The clothing must be white, the feet must be washed and bare, and an offering of wine and bread before the gathering. The Druids of Gaul say that this plant should be carried as a charm against every kind of evil, and that the smoke is good for the diseases of the eyes. In another section, it says the Druids also use a certain marsh plant that they call, this is all screwed up too, Semulus, maybe? This must be gathered with the left hand when fasting, and is a charm against the diseases of cattle. But the gatherer must not look behind him, nor lay the plant anywhere except in the drinking troughs. So that's what we have on the Druids with mistletoe. One would really have to know Norse myth. Excuse me. To see the connections there. Also, there's Egyptian influence there. But these things don't translate very well into the English language. That he wears a white garment, you know. First and foremost, you cannot use a gold sickle to cut mistletoe. Anybody that knows metal will tell you that gold will not keep an edge. So it had to be bronze. And we know that there are lots of bronze reaping hooks that were, found throughout the mainland. Oddly enough, I think it's Pliny the Elder that gives this description of this so-called ritual. He's the one pretty much responsible for painting the picture for us that Druids wore white robes. Up until this point, it's not really known what they were wearing. But you also heard that, this hand through that hand through the tunic, that they caught it in a cloak. Now, I urge you to look up Pliny the Elder's Natural History and look at it in its original form and do a translation. I guarantee you that English translation is not exactly accurate. So the Druids with mistletoe is not mentioned anywhere else by anybody. And it's just accepted that Druids gathered mistletoe. On the 6th of the moon, with a golden sickle, and then there's a sacrifice, and then speculation, conjecture. Now, did the word mistletoe translate to all heal? From what we gather, we think so. Now, it's interesting that mistletoe is not a native plant to the British Isles, and I hate that term. So let's just not call it the British Isles. We know that mistletoe did not grow in Ireland, nor did it grow in Scotland, Wales, or Cornwall, or the Isle of Man. And it was a much later introduction. So during this time period, when Pliny the Elder is talking about the Druids collecting mistletoe in Gaul, it wasn't a plant in the Isles. Now, did the Druids collect mistletoe? I don't know, I wasn't there. They could have. Did they wear some sort of garment made of white? Perhaps there was some sort of unbleached or undyed flax linen. Perhaps it was some sort of a natural color of wool. Variegated. Speckled. Off-white. But not a robe. When you think of robes, we are automatically drawn to believe that these robes are monk robes. Big hoods and bellowing sleeves and, dragging on the forest floor. This is not born out of the evidence of the culture, of what we know that the people were wearing. They definitely didn't use gold, though. And anybody that has gathered mistletoe will tell you how thick and woody the plant really is. It is not an easy job. Now, I know the American mistletoe is much different than the European form, but they're close enough in the gathering aspect that they're a very hard plant to cut. You're not just going to, a gold won't keep an edge anyway, but you're not just going to go up with a hook and start, Hold on a second. Check this out. This is an exact replica of a sickle from that time period. Bronze. U-handle. Okay. Now you're telling me, even with the bronze handle here, that they're reaping mistletoe is going to be relatively hard. It's sharp. I keep it sharp. But how sharp does bronze get? Well, it's not like iron, and it's not like what iron turns into as hardened steel. So no, it's not going to keep the same type of edge. So using it as a reaping hook for mistletoe is problematic. Could it be done? Of course it can be done. It just takes work. Now, I'm highly speculative when I come across something in an account like this where it's not mentioned anywhere else. It's not mentioned in the folklore. It's not mentioned in any of the mythologies, the stories. It comes from one source. And the source it comes from is somebody that's from outside of the culture, often predisposed in his nature to be overly concerned with anything esoteric. So, did the Druids collect mistletoe? And if so, for what? Is it anything like Pliny the Elder's accounts in his natural histories? I think you need to make up your mind on that. I don't think it's borne out by the evidence. I don't think what they were wearing is borne out by the evidence. And again, I urge you to check out his original the original in, was it probably Greek? That, oh, maybe it was in Latin. No, I think it is in Latin. Yeah, I could check. And see for yourself in and comparing what I read you to a more modern translation, because this was done quite a while ago. But again, outside the culture, it could be propaganda. But all sorts of druids, modern and neo, all sorts of things have been woven into the culture as accurate that this really happened. I don't think so. You might think so. There's not much mentioned with the Druids and mistletoe except that. Speculative. Well, you guys have a great day. I'm going to finish this pipe. I'm going to do some more reading. And I'm going to do some translation work on some of these Latin things. Perhaps I'll post them on a blog. That'd be pretty neat. If I do post them to my blog, I will share the link. It might take me a week or so to get it up, but you can always check back. And I hope you guys have a great day. Until then, Slán go full.